The Path of Purification, Visuddhimagga, or Bhattanta Charya Buddhaghosa, published by Buddhist Publication Society, Kandy, Sri Lanka. Part 2, Concentration, Samadhi. Chapter 4, The Earth Kasina. Extracts, passage 153 to 181.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
The third jhana. And at this point, with the fading away of happiness as well, he dwells in equanimity and mindful and fully aware. He feels bliss with his body. He enters upon and dwells in the third jhana, on account of which the noble ones announce, he dwells in bliss, who has equanimity and is mindful, and so he has attained the third jhana, which abandons one factor, possesses two factors, is good in 3 ways, possesses 10 characteristics, and is of the Earth Kasina. Herein, with the fading away of happiness as well, Pitya cha viragga, fading away is distaste for, or surmounting of, happiness of the kind already described. But the words as well, cha, between the 2 words, pitya and viragga, have the meaning of a conjunction. They conjoin to them either the word stealing or the expression the stealing of applied and sustained thought in the description of a second jhana. Herein, when taken as conjoining, stealing, the construction to be understood is with the fading away, and what is more, with the stealing of happiness. With this construction, fading away has the meaning of distaste, so the meaning can be regarded as with distaste for and with the stealing of happiness. But when taken as conjoining the words stealing of applied and sustained thought, then the construction to be understood is with the fading of happiness, and further with the stealing of applied and sustained thought. With this construction, fading away has the meaning of surmounting, so this meaning can be regarded as with the surmounting of happiness and with the stealing of applied and sustained thought. Of course, applied and sustained thought have already been stilled in the second jhana too. However, this is said in order to show the path to this third jhana and in order to recommend it. For when with the stealing of applied and sustained thought is said, it is declared that the path to this jhana is necessarily by the stealing of applied and sustained thought. And just as, although mistaken view of individuality, etc., are not abandoned in the attaining of the third noble path, but in the first, yet when it is recommended by describing their abandonment thus, with the abandoning of the 5 lower fetters, then it awakens eagerness in those trying to attain that third noble path. So too, when the stealing of applied and sustained thought is mentioned, though they are not actually stilled here, but in the second. This is a recommendation. Hence the meaning expresses this with the surmounting of happiness and with the stilling of applied and sustained thought. He dwells in equanimity. It watches as they arise. Upapatito ikati. Thus it is equanimity, upekka, or onlooking. It sees fairly, sees without partiality. Apakka patita is the meaning. A possessor of the third jhana is said to dwell in equanimity. Since he possesses equanimity, that is clear, abundant, and sound. Equanimity is of 10 kinds. 6-factored equanimity, equanimity as a divine abiding, equanimity as an enlightenment factor, equanimity of energy, equanimity about formations, equanimity as a feeling, equanimity about insight, equanimity as specific neutrality, equanimity of jhana, and equanimity of purification. Herein, 6-factored equanimity is a name for the equanimity in one whose cankers are destroyed. It is the mode of non-abandonment of the natural state of purity when desirable or undesirable objects of the 6 kinds come into focus in the 6 doors described thus. Here, a bhikkhu whose cankers are destroyed is neither glad nor sad on seeing a visible object with the eye. He dwells in equanimity, mindful and fully aware. Equanimity as a divine abiding is a name for equanimity consisting in the mode of neutrality towards beings described thus. He dwells intent upon one quarter, with his heart endued with equanimity. Equanimity as an enlightenment factor is a name for equanimity consisting in the mode of neutrality in connascent states described thus. He develops the equanimity enlightenment factor depending on relinquishment. Equanimity of energy is a name for the equanimity otherwise known as neither overstrenuous nor overlax energy, described thus. From time to time, he brings to mind the sign of equanimity. Equanimity about formations is a name for equanimity consisting in neutrality about apprehending reflection and composure regarding the hindrances, etc., described thus. How many kinds of equanimity about formations arise through concentration? How many kinds of equanimity about formations arise through insight? 8 kinds of equanimity about formations arise through concentration. 10 kinds of equanimity about formations arise through insight. Equanimity as a feeling is a name for the equanimity known as neither pain nor pleasure, described thus. On the occasion on which a sense-sphere profitable consciousness has arisen, accompanied by equanimity. Equanimity about insight is a name for equanimity consisting in neutrality about investigation, described thus. What exists, what has become, that he abandons and he obtains equanimity. Equanimity as specific neutrality is a name for equanimity consisting in the equal efficiency of connascent states It is contained among the or whatever states, beginning with zeal. Equanimity of jhana is a name for equanimity, producing impartiality towards even the highest bliss described thus. He dwells in equanimity. Purifying equanimity is a name for equanimity, purified of all opposition, and so consisting in uninterestedness in stilling opposition, described thus. The fourth jhana, which has mindfulness, purified by equanimity. Herein, six-factored equanimity, equanimity as a divine abiding, equanimity as an enlightenment factor, equanimity as specific neutrality, equanimity of jhana, and purifying equanimity are one in meaning. That is, equanimity as specific neutrality. Their difference, however, is one of position, like the difference in a single being as a boy, a youth, an adult, a general, a king, and so on. Therefore, of these it should be understood that equanimity as an enlightenment factor, etc., are not found where there is six-factored equanimity, or that six-factored equanimity are not found where there is equanimity as an enlightenment factor. And just as these have one meaning, so also equanimity about formations and equanimity about insight have one meaning too, for they are simply understanding classed in these two ways according to function. Just as when a man has seen a snake go into his house in the evening and has hunted for it with a forked stick, and then when he has seen it lying in the grain store and has looked to discover whether it is actually a snake or not, and then by seeing 3 marks has no more doubt, and so there is neutrality in him about further investigating whether or not it is a snake. So too, when a man has begun insight and he sees with insight knowledge the 3 characteristics, then and there is neutrality in him about further investigating the impermanence, etc., of formations, and that neutrality is called equanimity about insight. But just as when the man has caught hold of the snake securely with a forked stick and thinks, "How shall I get rid of the snake without hurting it or getting bitten by it?" then as he is seeking only the way to get rid of it, there is neutrality in him about the catching hold of it. So too, when a man, through seeking the 3 characteristics, sees the 3 kinds of becoming as if burning, then there is neutrality in him about catching hold of formations, and that neutrality is called equanimity about formations. So when equanimity about insight is established, equanimity about formations is established too. But it is divided into 2 in this way according to function. In other words, according to neutrality about investigating and about catching hold. Equanimity of energy and equanimity as feeling are different both from each other and from the rest. So of these kinds of equanimity, it is equanimity of jhana that is intended here, that has the characteristic of neutrality. Its function is to be unconcerned. It is manifested as uninterestedness. Its proximate cause is the fading away of happiness. Here it may be said, is this not simply equanimity as specific neutrality in the meaning? And that exists in the first and second jhanas as well. So this clause, he dwells in equanimity, ought to be stated of those also? Why is it not? It may be replied, because its function is unevident there, since it is overshadowed by applied thought and the rest. But it appears here with a quite evident function, with head erect, as it were, because it is not overshadowed by applied and sustained thought and happiness. That is why it is stated here. The commentary on the meaning of the clause, he dwells in equanimity, is thus completed in all its aspects. And as to mindful and fully aware, here he remembers sarati, thus he is mindful satta. He has full awareness sampajanati, thus he is fully aware sampajana. This is mindfulness and full awareness stated as personal attributes. Herein, mindfulness has the characteristic of remembering. Its function is not to forget. It is manifested as guarding. Full awareness has the characteristic of non-confusion. Its function is to investigate. It is manifested as scrutiny. Herein, although this mindfulness and this full awareness exists in the earlier jhanas as well, for one who is forgetful and not fully aware does not attain even access, let alone absorption. Yet because of the comparative grossness of those jhanas, the mind's going is easy there, like that of a man on level ground. And so the functions of mindfulness and full awareness are not evident in them. But it is only stated here because the subtlety of this jhana, which is due to the abandoning of the gross factors, requires that the mind's going always includes the functions of mindfulness and full awareness, like that of a man on a razor's edge. What is more, just as a calf that follows a cow returns to the cow when taken away from her, if not prevented, so too, when this third jhana is led away from happiness, it will return to happiness if not prevented by mindfulness and full awareness, and would rejoin happiness. And besides, beings are greedy for bliss, and this kind of bliss is exceedingly sweet, since there is none greater. But here there is non-greed for the bliss, owing to the influence of the mindfulness and full awareness, not for any other reason. And so it should also be understood that it is stated only here in order to emphasize this meaning too. Now, as to the clause, he feels bliss with his body. Here, although in one actually possessed of the third jhana, there is no concern about feeling bliss. Nevertheless, he would feel the bliss associated with his mental body, and after emerging from the jhana, he would also feel bliss since his material body would have been affected by the exceedingly superior matter originated by that bliss associated with the mental body. It is in order to point to this meaning that the words, he feels bliss with his body, are said. Now as to the clause, that on account of which the Noble One announced He dwells in bliss, who has equanimity and is mindful. Here it is a jhana, on account of which as cause, on account of which as reason, the noble ones, that is to say, the enlightened ones, etc., announce, teach, declare, establish, reveal, expound, explain, clarify that person who possesses the third jhana. They praise is what is intended. Why? Because he dwells in bliss, who has equanimity and is mindful. He enters upon and dwells in that third jhana. Tam tatiyang jhanang upasampaja viharati is how the construction should be understood here. But why do they praise him thus? Because he is worthy of praise. For this man is worthy of praise, since he has equanimity towards the third jhana, though it possesses exceedingly sweet bliss and has reached the perfection of bliss, and he is not drawn towards it by a liking for the bliss. And he is mindful with the mindfulness established in order to prevent the arising of happiness, and he feels with his mental body the undefiled bliss, beloved of noble ones, cultivated by noble ones. Because he is worthy of praise in this way, it should be understood. Noble ones praise him with the words, he dwells in bliss, who has equanimity and is mindful, thus declaring the special qualities that are worthy of praise. Third, it is a third in the numerical series, and it is third because it is entered upon third. Then it was said, which abandons one factor, possesses two factors. Here the abandoning of the one factor should be understood as the abandoning of happiness, but that is abandoned only at the moment of absorption, as applied thought and sustained thought are at that of the second jhana. Hence it is called its factor of abandoning. The possession of the two factors should be understood as the arising of the two, namely bliss and unification. So when it is said in the Vibhanga, Jhana, equanimity, mindfulness, full awareness, bliss, unification of mind, this is said figuratively in order to show that jhana with its equipment, but accepting the equanimity and mindfulness and full awareness, this jhana has literally only two factors, core factors, that have attained to the characteristic of lighting, according as it is said. What is the jhana of two factors on that occasion? It is bliss and unification of mind. The rest is as in the case of the first jhana. Once this has been obtained in this way, and once he has mastery in the 5 ways already described, then on emerging from the now familiar third jhana, he can regard the flaws in it thus. This attainment is threatened by the nearness of happiness. Whatever there is in it of mental concern about bliss proclaims its grossness, and its factors are weakened by the grossness of the bliss so expressed. He can bring the fourth jhana to mind as quieter, and so end his attachment to the third jhana, and set about doing what is needed for attaining the fourth. When he has emerged from the third jhana, the bliss, in other words, the mental joy, appears gross to him as he reviews the jhana factors with mindfulness and full awareness, while the equanimity as feeling and the unification of mind appear peaceful. Then as he brings that same sign to mind as earth, earth, again and again, with the purpose of abandoning the gross factor and obtaining the peaceful factors, knowing, now the fourth jhana will arise. There arises in him mind door adverting with that same Earth Kasina as its object, interrupting the life continuum. After that, either 4 or 5 impulsions impel on that same object, the last one of which is an impulsion of the fine material sphere belonging to the fourth jhana. The rest are of the kinds already stated.